Dark-type in the Pokemon world often make us think of extremely ferocious Pokemon, with fangs and claws causing great damage to opponents, or mischievous Pokemon with all sorts of nasty tricks. However, there are some Pokemon that also have Dark-type, but their appearance in a match does not bring any darkness at all, but only laughter. Why should you be afraid of an opponent who cannot hurt you? And now you are welcome to the list of the top 10 weakest Dark-type Pokemon in this video, right after my introduction. Let's go. According to Newton's second law of motion, the heavier the object, the greater the force it will exert upon impact. It's an irreversible truth, but although Guzzlord is the heaviest Dark-type Pokemon, its impact in a battle is not as much as we expected. Similar to other Ultra Beasts, Guzzlord has a very cool ability called Beast Boost, which helps it increase its highest stat by 1 stage each time it defeats a foe. But the irony here is that this ability can only increase attack, defense, or speed stats, but cannot increase HP. And with Guzzlord, its highest stat is HP. Then, from the beginning, this heavy Pokemon was inferior to all other Ultra Beasts. You can say that if Guzzlord cannot increase HP, he can increase other stats, which is still quite good. Not at all. That would lead to Guzzlord's second problem. Although the total stats reach a high of 570, equal to low-level legendary Pokemon, nearly half of that is put into HP, so Guzzlord's remaining stats are only average. Some are extremely bad. Especially its 2 pathetic defense stats, making the health bar seem to be XXL size, but in fact it is only S size. It's even more tragic when the Dragon, Dark Dual type, has too many common weaknesses, such as the Ice type, the Fighting type, and especially the Fairy type. Whether it has a chance to activate the ability only once in a match is also a huge question mark. In short, maybe because it's too big, it can't fit in any battle. Shiftry has become much more interesting with its recent buff. Everyone was quite excited about this. Of course, when a new thing for an old Pokemon appears, who wouldn't be excited? But actually, this upgrade doesn't bring as much value as we think. Wind Rider helps it be immune to wind moves, even increasing its physical attack by 1 stage when hit by them. They can be Tailwind from teammates or the foe's Heatwave, Blizzard, or Hurricane. Being immune to some counter moves is also quite useful, but in the end, it is just a Pokemon with all the stats ranging from average to weak, with Dark Grass Dual type being extremely bad compared to another Pokemon that also owns Wind Rider, Bramblegast. But even though Bramblegast is only classified as a Pokemon that was popular for a short period of time, only used to counter another Pokemon, how can Shiftry be considered a decent one? Shiftry can use Tailwind on its own, that's good, but a Pokemon with 7 weaknesses can't successfully release Tailwind if it's surrounded by heavy attackers, like in the metagame right now. Anyway, it cannot be denied that this Wind Rider ability is more valuable than its previous early bird. That's also the reason why it increased from rank 6 to rank 9 in this video, but in my opinion, this Pokemon's strength is only that much. Like all other cats in the world, which embody an innate sense of pride and extremely arrogant, Alolan Persian should only be friends with humans and not let them participate in any battles because they will immediately know where they should be placed in the power map of Pokemon World. Just looking at this cat's terrible stats, we can see that it cannot cause any damage to the opponent's HP, and its defense is also extremely weak. However, it has an extremely amazing moveset with Fake Out, Knockoff, Switcheroo, Taunt, U-turn, and Parting Shot, along with a pretty good ability, Fur Coat, which basically doubles its physical defense. This cat was able to withstand at least 3 times Garchomp using Earthquake, which is worthy of recognition. However, the above things and 115 speed cannot help Alolan Persian perform any important role other than being an interesting choice for players. In theory, this cat's tricks are quite good, but in real battles, after all the time it has survived thanks to its ability to withstand opponents' attacks, it could not put any pressure on them, bringing as much disappointment as his stupid face. Malamar's design concept is based on villains with the ability to hypnotize, brainwash, and flashlights on their bodies. However, in the end, it chose to follow the path of using physical power. If you often play Pokemon Showdown Random Battle Mode in Generation 8, you will definitely encounter this squid spamming superpower. Because it has contrary, it helps to reverse the effect of increasing and decreasing its stats. Once Malamar has used Superpower 2-3 times, it will truly be a destructive tank, especially when your opponent does not have a good special attacker. But that only happens when people play randomly, when they won't know which Pokemon they can use and what Pokemon their opponents have. Surprise is Malamar's greatest weapon. By just seeing its appearance on the opposing team, you already know what it is planning to do.
Yeah,
After all, this is the only effective use of Malamar. Anything else it has is actually pretty useless. Malamar's typing is really bad, as the combination of Dark and Psychic types does not help it at all in defense, except for being immune to Psychic moves. And it still has some weaknesses as Fairy and Bug. These are also two types that are resistant to its superpower. Along with that is a pathetic set of stats, on par with early root Pokemon. Perhaps only when the flashing lights on its body turn red and blue and the song When Mugunghwa Flowers Bloom is sung, will people feel a little afraid of this squid. And now we will come to a Pokemon that I think is quite bad in both design and strength. Skuntank. Perhaps this Pokemon will also appear in the video about the top 10 weakest Poison-type Pokemon. Basically, Poison and Dark dual type is pretty good, helping it only have one weakness, Ground type. However, this is the only valuable thing about this Pokemon. It can be said that it is in the middle of this ranking entirely due to its dual type. The remaining things of Skuntank are at a below-average level. Its hit is not hard at all, moreover, it's slow, and it even does not have a good defense. Choosing it for your team doesn't bring any benefit. It can be defeated by just one hit, and even if it still survives, what are you going to do with it? Because all three abilities of this Pokemon are quite useless and come with a set of moves that are nothing special. Maybe a new evolutionary form will help it gain more sympathy, but I don't know when. Liepard was once notorious for its combination of Prankster and Assist, making it almost impossible for opponents to touch it. It is somehow stated in its Pokédex entry that, stealthily, it sneaks up on its target, striking from behind before its victim has a chance to react. But the end of Generation 5 is also the end of this heinous trick, and Liepard was left with only an extremely fragile cat with pitiful attack power. Even though it is a Pokemon that possesses Prankster, it does not have any moves that are too valuable in battles, like other Prankster Pokemon such as Tornadus, Thundurus, or even Murkrow. It seemed like this cat would sink into oblivion, but this 9th gen helped the cat come up with a very interesting trick called the Revival Cats. That is using Assist to activate Revival Blessing to revive each other until the opponent is defeated or gives up because it wastes too much time. However, to be able to implement this strategy, there needs to be at least 2 Liepards in the team, maybe 4 or 5 at most. And this is also impossible in serious battles. An Assist has also been removed from the game since Generation 8, so what I said above can only be done on Pokemon Showdown. And what's left of Liepard is still just bad defense and attack power that isn't enough to threaten anyone. If all the Pokemon I mentioned at the beginning of the list have at least one stat reaching 100, then Thievul has all the stats below that number. Because it is an early root Pokemon, and they are Pokemon with extremely low total stats, evolve quickly and are just useful at the beginning of the game. Thievul possesses an interesting ability, Stakeout, causing it to deal double damage to Pokemon that have just been sent out on the field, making switching Pokemon in front of it quite a bit dangerous, especially when it was able to use Nasty Plot once. But there are actually very few cases where it can take advantage of its ability, because there are not many Pokemon who have to retreat when facing it. Psychic or Ghost Pokemon will have some coverage moves. For example, Focus Blast, while Thievul's physical attack is too low to be able to deliver a powerful Sucker Punch. Even if it can defeat an opponent, using Protect or Fake Out can completely disable this Fox's ability. The Alolan version of Raticate is different from the Kanto one, as they have infiltrated life in the city and led the Rattata gangs. They divide their territory, live on roadsides, and are ready for physical contact if there is a dispute. That's all we need to worry about, because in battles, it's a total failure, can only bully the mice. All of Raticate's stats are terrible, making it have pretty good abilities that don't make it any better. With Hustle in one turn using Sword Dance successfully, it can deal quite a bit of damage, especially with its powerful stab priority move, Sucker Punch. That's assuming it doesn't miss. If the ancestors bless it, it can even one-hit KO Latios. But other than to create highlights, it's best not to depend on this mouse if you still want to win. Anyway, I don't think anyone likes this Pokemon. Cacturne is a rather humorous Pokemon, as it is the complete opposite of its appearance. This one is designed based on a scarecrow, whose effect is to discourage birds from disturbing and feeding on recently cast seed and growing crops, but it has a weakness, which is flying type. It is also based on the cactus, which lives in extremely hot areas like deserts but is afraid of fire type. And according to Pokédex, this Pokemon is completely motionless during the day, only active when night falls and the temperature drops, but it is also weak to ice type. Cacturne is basically just a Shiftry that is slower and is not buffed. The only difference is that it has Sand Veil, which boosts evasiveness during sandstorms. If it can just dodge one hit, it's pretty scary with a base attack stat of 115. And that's just if, because believing in a 20% chance to dodge is not advisable. I tried practicing with Sand Veil Garchomp, and it was an absolute disaster. And that's Garchomp, not a motionless cactus bush. Because Pokemon battles mostly happen in the morning, perhaps Cacturne can only stand still, motionless, take the hit, and lose consciousness like the Pokédex mentioned. When other first-root Pokemon in Generation 3 had a regional form and even an evolution, I believe Mightyena was extremely jealous. Because actually, before the 8th generation, Lanoon was already rated higher than this wolf. At least it could be a HM slave. To be worthy of this position as the weakest Dark-type Pokemon, Mightyena possesses a thing that few Pokemon can achieve, which is still extremely bad even when it has one of the best abilities, Intimidate. Because other than this ability, it doesn't bring any other value. Besides its average basic physical attack, everything else about it is like other first-route Pokemon, extremely bad and a terrible moveset. It also has Moxie, making it stronger every time it defeats an opponent. But do you think it can threaten any Pokemon with 70 speed and its strongest stab move is Crunch? Of course not. Even NPC in the game find this Pokemon not worth using. Mightyena was used by the Elite Four Sydney when he first battled with the player, and the next time he did not hesitate to remove it from his team. I'm pretty sure Mightyena also appears in the starting team of a lot of Gen 3 players because its appearance at both the unevolved and first evolution is very attractive. But really at some point, you still have to let him go back to Professor Akito. It seems like the majority of the Pokemon on this list are old generation Pokemon. Since Generation 9 and DLC was released along with the new Dark-type Pokemon, they are all very amazing, and can account for up to half of the list of the top 10 most powerful Dark-type Pokemon. Let's look forward to seeing which Pokemon they will be. Now say goodbye.